Summer Conference 2015. Our afternoon presenter is going to talk about music and marketing. This is Jim Dayton.
Hello. I want to thank the Midwest Music Foundation for having me. I don't have an illustrious story like Cameron had this morning. There was no Moonlight Drive that got me to this point. I signed up on the website to be a volunteer and was asked how I wanted to volunteer. And I said, well, I work in marketing, so I'd be glad to talk about marketing with musicians. Or I also do work looking for grants in my job that I was in at the time, and said I'd be happy to help hunt down some grants for Midwest Music Foundation and do some of that digging, because I know there's a lot of legwork involved with finding money for nonprofit organizations. And so I said I'd be happy to help out with that in any way I can. So I'm a volunteer, and I'm a happy volunteer for Midwest Music Foundation. I think really one thing that I always talk about when I talk about marketing with people right off the bat is that marketing is a relationship, and today I'm not here to preach or just throw marketing stuff at you. Today, it's a conversation, and I put it as a quote for me because I just said it. It's awesome. But no, it's a conversation today. So if you have stuff you want to talk about, just ask. Stop me while I'm talking and ask, because there's a number of different things I'm going to throw out there and a number of different ideas and topics and various things around marketing that you may sit there and say, well, this doesn't work for musicians, or it doesn't work for musicians who have no money, especially because most of the musicians don't have a marketing budget. I would say probably over 90% of them don't have a marketing budget. The ones that do, awesome. You might actually even get some cool ideas if you do have a marketing budget. More power to you if you do, but most don't. And that leads to kind of who I am. Why am I able to come here and talk about marketing? Well, I'm what they would call a veteran marketer now, because I just passed that 15-year mark. I don't know why they kind of, now when I get introduced by people, they're, oh, a veteran marketer, and it was at 15 years I started seeing them call me that, and I was like, hey, I still feel like a young guy. I'm not, don't really feel like a veteran marketer yet, but 16 plus years in marketing. I've worked with marketing budgets of pharmaceutical companies. So those people that Cameron were just speaking about and showing how much their drugs, their brand name drugs cost versus the generic versions. I was the guy that was trying to get you to spend the $200 and some odd on a brand name versus a generic. That was part of my job. But the cool thing that I learned from marketing pharmaceuticals was that they have a lot of money, so I can see what it takes to really market anywhere from a giant budget of multi-millions of dollars down to a very small and tiny budget of no money. And you say, how can that be if you're working with pharmaceutical companies because they have tons of money? Well, I also did some time with a nonprofit called Campfire in my career. And Campfire is a youth development organization that had a great time back in the 60s and 70s. They had tons of people wanting to be part of Campfire. However, they got beat out at some point by the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts, and they were kind of left to the side. And so they didn't have as much money when I came to work for them. So I know what it's like to work on no budget. Plus, on top of that, I'm a musician. And I've been everywhere on the spectrum, from working musician down to just basically a student of music. And so I've had the zero budget, the completely zero budget, no money at all. What do you do when you have no money? But the cool thing about it is I like to do things that are different. I like to be first at things. I like firsts. And so even when I was working with a lot of money, or when I've been working with no money, no budget, in marketing, I like to do things that people either aren't thinking about, they don't see the opportunity, or it's just something that can be done that nobody really said, well, that's not really marketing, and then you use it as a marketing vehicle. So it's some interesting things. And again, like I said, I'm a hobbyist musician and writer now at this point in my life. I do still have a career in marketing, thankfully, that veteran marketer status. But why I tell you guys that I'm a hobbyist musician and writer is because what matters in this presentation or in this workshop that we're going to do right here is who you are. Because I can talk about marketing all day that I do for me. It's not going to make any difference to you. So it matters who you are. And I kind of put together this continuum of where musicians are. I think we all pretty much start out as students of music, or simply just appreciating music, and then we decide we want to figure out how to do it. And that we become students. From there we become hobbyists. We want to play all the time. We start collecting gear, we start going out and being with other musicians, and we decide this is a fun thing to do, but it's not going to be our job necessarily. Then there's plenty of people out there who get on that next step of becoming what I would call an artist. They don't necessarily make it their job, but they know they have this deep, driving passion for it. I would say that I'm kind of in that category. However, I don't spend enough time with this deep, driving passion to consider myself an artist right now. So I still consider myself a hobbyist. And then there's working musicians. And you don't go from just being a student and say, well, I'm no longer a student and now I'm a working musician. You're all of these things along the continuum. You're still a student, you're still a hobbyist, you're still an artist, you're still a working musician once you're a working musician, once you get to that end of the spectrum. So it's not taking anything away from if you're at this far end and say, oh, I'm just a student. Well, no, you're working your way towards everything else. And if you're a working musician, you're still learning, you're still loving it, you still have that deep passion. So it's kind of where you find yourself on this continuum as to where you can put the most effort, I guess, is the best way to put it, into your marketing and what you're going to do. And also, it makes a difference whether you're a student or a working musician or a hobbyist or an artist as to how much effort you're going to really want to put forth. I've worked with a lot of people who are other hobbyist musicians, and I'll be honest, the effort we put forth, we could put forth a heck of a lot more. I've also worked with a lot of people who are working musicians. They'll put forth the effort every day. They know they have to do it because they're going to have to feed their families. They have to pay for their, houses and their apartments and their cars and their health insurance and everything else. So they have to put forth the effort. A lot of them like to think that they're in that kind of artist category, and they say, but I'm the guy who makes the music. I'm not the guy who does the business. No. If you want to be a working musician, you want to move to that step, you got to do the business too. And so that brings me to this awesome Hunter S. Thompson quote about the music business, and I don't know, probably a lot of you have already seen it, but the music business is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs. There's also a negative side. In today's world and how I deal with the music business on a daily basis, when it comes to the marketing that I do now, I see a lot more of that. I see a lot more of the plastic hallway side of music, the thieves and the pimps, frankly. And it is a tough business. It's very segmented. It's very tough to be a part of. People want to take your intellectual property, I guess, for lack of a better term, or your passion, and they want it for free most times. And they aren't going to pay you much for it. And you've worked hard on it. It's things you care about. It's things you're passionate about. And so what we see in the music industry now is we are seeing more and more what I would like to call DIY working musicians, where they're going to go out and they're going to just be their own business. And they're going to do it themselves because they can. And part of that is because they don't want to be made into that plastic hallway type musician. So that's that artist in them coming out. And a lot of the musicians that I have talked to that are DIY, I guess I call them working musicians, they find doing the business to be very difficult and very tough and very hard. And it's because of their mindset in a lot of ways. And that mindset is like the Googles and the Facebooks and the Twitters and all of these other companies that I've worked with on the opposite side of my life from music. They have a startup mindset, and you have to adopt the startup mindset, the 21st century startup mindset, to be in the music industry, I think, today. And that's just my opinion. And that startup mindset is, you're not only a musician, you're not just playing music. You're an entrepreneur. You're the marketer, you're the salesperson, you are your team, and you are the visionary. You get to decide how your business runs, and it's a business. It's not just, I'm gonna play music. I think it's great for people who do that, and I love just playing music, but if you wanna make it in the music industry or you wanna be seen by more people, you have to start thinking of it as a business. If you've started up a company tomorrow that sold, let's say, sold art supplies, you'd need a brick and mortar building, you need a website where you can sell your art supplies, you need to go out and make sure people are hearing about your art supply store, you need to make sure you're getting commercials on the radio, getting commercials on TV in order to grow that business, and that all costs money. So I understand that it's not something that you can just go out and do with music, but part of the good thing about music and being in music is it is a high demand piece of art that you're putting out for many, many different people in the world. And people get extremely passionate about the music they listen to. So passionate, in fact, that we now have so many different genres of music out there that we never had before. You could go on the radio dial back when I was a kid, and you'd have like 3 different kinds of stations, maybe country and western, maybe have a folk station. I grew up in the 70s. Maybe have a really good rock station. Then you'd have kind of the AM hit stations, so maybe 4. So you'd have these 4 like radio stations, and they didn't play all the subgenres that they play now. Now we don't go to the typical radio dial all the time. Generally we go to the internet, listen to internet radio, Spotify, those types of things. And look at all the various subgenres you have. Just look at something like heavy metal. Heavy metal has death metal, black metal, magic metal, super metal. I mean, you just go through and it's these genres that are crazy and they're made up by some kid in his bedroom. I mean, seriously. It's some band that's decided, well, we don't really fit into all these other genres, so we're gonna make up a genre. And they can do that. And that's part of their marketing. But the problem with that is you're also dealing with, now you have a niche audience. So you have this little audience that wants to listen to just that type of music. And then Spotify has to go and say, oh, well, there's these other bands that fit into that too, so we'll put them in there too, and then we're gonna make these people listen to that. So it's those kind of mechanics that musicians are dealing with today. I mean, and we're all dealing with, even the hobbyist musicians, because my band likes to go out and we like to play shows, but we're dealing with that same kind of thing. People wanna put us, when a bar talks to us about playing a show, they want to put us with these other bands, and they're like, well, we don't know that you guys will really fit with these guys, so we're going to put you on a Thursday night with these guys over here because they more fit your genre. So the bars are dealing with it, the musicians are dealing with it, and we're just keep splintering off and splintering off and splintering off and splintering off. What that does when we do that is it continually makes the crowd smaller, 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 smaller. So you end up just having a crowd of like, 100 people. I really like this folk rock metal fusion thing that you're doing. And it gets kind of silly. And it's hard to market to. You can't market to those people, and you can definitely not market to them without a budget. Like if you don't have a budget and you want to market to these like very specific people, you can't do it without money. So we end up having to market to bigger and bigger groups. And so I'm going to kind of make marketing a little more palatable. I know I've been talking a lot about the segmentation of the music industry and kind of where you fit on this musical spectrum. I've kind of been trying to talk to you guys as okay, as musicians, look at how crazy the world's become. And I've probably a lot of the things that I've said have been very disconnected because of that fact. And it's become a crazy place, the music world. But let's think about it as this startup mentality as a business for just a moment, and think, what can we do if we have no money? And how does marketing really work? What are the mechanics of marketing and how does it really work? And so I'm going to give you the breakdown. I'm not going to break down. So as I've been in marketing 16 years, I've never seen it change from this. This is what marketing is. Having a product, having a brand, promoting that brand, and doing public relations. And as a human being, you do all 4 of those things every day you wake up. So the first piece is having a product. Having a product to me is very interesting because as I've gone through marketing, I've seen a lot of terrible products marketed. I've seen a lot of terrible products advertised. But if you think about it, one thing that would make their lives easier would be to have a good product in the first place. I know you've probably heard somebody say at some point in your life, this product sells itself. You know why products sell themselves? They're good. They're good products. So I think the biggest thing to think about as a musician is how good is your product? And I'm not saying that your product has to be the most superior, best product ever to be put out there. There's plenty of music that certain people don't like. There's plenty of music that certain people love, that I wouldn't say that the finest musicians of the world would look at and go, it's art, it's absolute virtuosity, it's perfect. There's plenty of music out there that doesn't hit that high bar, but that's the best that somebody puts out and people love it. So that's what I get to when I think about products, is put out the best product you can put out day in and day out. If you decide to record, if you decide to go out and play your music at a show, you want to play your best. You want to play your best when you record. You want to play your best when you're out playing live. Put out the best product. And that's all part of putting out the best product. And practice and do the things that need to be done to put out that best product. Because the next point down there is really important. It has to be consistent. Products that have been successful throughout time have always been consistent products. You get it the same way over and over and over again. You don't get, if it doesn't have flaws in it and it's the best you can do and it's your best product, it's not going to have any flaws. Well, music, that's somewhat hard to do sometimes, but if you get to that point where you can do that, then you're doing really well and you're putting out a good product and your product starts to sell itself. There's no money that goes into selling itself. When a product sells itself, it sells itself. You don't have to put any money in. But a key piece of that also, beyond having it consistent, is to listen to the people around you, listen to your fans, and listen to your true fans. And we do this with actual products all the time, like real products, toothpaste, for instance, or in my case, pharmaceuticals. We listen to the people who are fans of our product, and they tell us, how can we make it better? They tell us. And today we can look online for 5 minutes and you can see people telling you how to make your product better or how to make it more appealing. So that's a consistent process as well with your product and making it the best it can be. And then finally in music, which you don't see in a lot of other products, is that fourth point, is to take risks. One of the best musicians that I've ever known in my life, and I'm not going to name his name right now, but he gave me a piece of advice a long time ago when I first started trying to figure out how to write songs. And he said, be yourself and put your whole self out there. That's hard to do. Most people put up barriers with themselves and they don't take that risk of putting their whole self out there. Even if you think you can't do something, sometimes jumping over that barrier and trying it gives you the top one, gives you the better product, gives you the best product. So in music, we always have to take risks. We have to constantly take risks. Put words on paper and put words out there and music out there that we may not think are the most exciting, or they're too hard for us, or there's something that we just don't feel like we want to put out there because it's not awesome every time for us. Take those risks sometimes, and what you'll find is that you're going to end up with a better product in the end. And it's kind of an odd way to think about things sometimes, but sometimes you got to take some risks and go that extra step that you may not be taking already to make your product better or make it the best thing out there. So that's the first thing, product. And if you have a product that sells itself, you don't need any of the rest of the stuff that I'm going to talk about. So lucky you, but you probably will need the rest of the stuff. And the second piece is brand. We hear a lot now about brand. Like, brand is something that's brought up a lot more than it ever was in the past, I think. I see it on the news even, people talking about their personal brand. Have you ever heard anybody say something about their personal brand? It's come about a lot because of social media. But brand is something that is elusive for a lot of people. But it's really not. It's your personality. It's a company's personality, it's a product's personality. It's the personality you put out around your product. That's all brand is. So it's really simple to look at these points and kind of decide, you know, okay, well, that all kind of makes some sense. That's what a personality is. It's being yourself. And in a lot of times I hear musicians say, I'm local right now, I'm trying to become national. Guess what? It's really okay to be local in this day and age. Really okay, and especially in Kansas City. Kansas City has a huge growing music scene, and being local is actually a really good thing in Kansas City right now. It's good to be local in Austin too, just happens to be. But act human. When you're talking about when you're talking about your product and having a product out there like music, people it's a very human thing. Music is a shared experience a lot of times. So being human with the people around you is very important, and it's part of your brand. So if somebody were to come up and ask you about your music, what kind of things might you say to them? Like if they were to say, what type of music do you play? I'll go with my good buddy Doug here, who has come to play alternative rock. I don't really like alternative rock. What kind of things do you guys sing about? Girls. Now I'm with you. And see, that's the type of thing, though. We get those questions a lot. Well, what do you sing about? Well, I sing about pain, and I sing about heartbreak, or I sing about having a great time and partying your butt off. I mean, you got to be able to answer those questions, and you got to hit at those human emotions, because that's what your product really, frankly, in music, that's what it's about. It's about human emotions. Know your audience. I think that's one of the biggest things out there is the band I'm in right now, we like to play, when we play a show, we almost always ask for like the first or second slot because we need to play like at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. We can't really play those late slots because our audience will not be around at the late slots. They won't be there. They're going to be at home relieving their babysitters, having their nightcap before they go to bed because they are not going to stay out till midnight to see a bunch of 40-year-old guys stand up on stage and play alternative rock. It's just not going to happen. So you got to know your audience as well, and that's part of your brand is knowing who you appeal to, because then you can continually have a consistent product to those people. And when I put on here, be an expert, in music, it's very, very important actually to be an expert. Not everybody is an expert, but it's nice to be able to show your expertise at any given time. And when you're talking about marketing yourself, you want people to come to you and ask questions about your music, about the instruments you play, why you play those instruments. And so getting out online especially, and getting out amongst the public even, and talking about those things. I used to, when I was a kid, go to the guitar stores here in town. There used to be a ton of them, now there's only very few. But I used to go to the guitar stores in town because one, I'd want to talk to the salespeople who were there, who were obviously trying to sell me a guitar, but a lot of those guys knew a lot about the guitars. They were experts to me. I learned about guitar by going to guitar shops, talking to the techs that were there, talking to the guys who were trying to sell the guitars, because they knew more than anybody else. So it's those kind of things, and now we do all that stuff online. If you have an instrument that you love, I can promise you there's probably a thread out there on some bulletin board online talking about your exact instrument, talking about the pros and cons of it, how you've modded it to make it into something more extra special. For songwriters, there is songwriter threads out there everywhere where you can talk about why did you write your song to be this way or that way, or what melody did you use, or how did you do things. It's because people want to know. They're trying to make their product better, and it's making your product better by having those conversations and becoming the expert. And it makes your brand better. So the third piece, I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit so we can have kind of a little bit more discussion. I kind of want to get everybody in here involved, and even on the stream. Send me questions later. But promotion, I think this is something where a lot of musicians end up falling short because they really are concentrating a lot on the product. And so when it comes to the promotion side, it's either something that they don't want to do because it's not necessarily the most fun, or it's just not part of their kind of mindset and their makeup because they just don't, it just doesn't, they don't want to be putting out a product in a lot of cases, but they are. They're a small business. But making sure people see your marketing materials. One thing I hate to see after I come out of a bar and seeing a show is I hate seeing handbills everywhere in the parking lot. Those guys have printed up handbills for their show to tell people when their next show is. They hand them out. They stand at the door, they hand them out, and they end up right there in the parking lot. So people aren't seeing those marketing materials. They're getting them in their hand and they're throwing them on the ground, or they're throwing them in the trash. So I hate seeing those kind of things, but that's the things we have to start making sure we aren't doing. That we're doing marketing materials that people are actually seeing. And so I also talk to a lot of musicians about building their own website. So they build their website, but then they just kind of set it and forget it. It's that kind of Ron Popeil type of, you put your chicken in the little rotisserie thing, you turn it on, you set it, you forget it, right? That's not how websites work. There's billions of websites out there. You don't just build it and say, okay, everybody's going to come to it, because they don't. You have to tell people to go to it, so you have to get involved in other areas and tell people to go to your site. And if you're an expert, if you start becoming an expert in various other places, guess what? Your website is going to just rocket with traffic. People are going to start coming there to get information from you personally. So that's two different kind of examples of making sure people see your marketing materials. But once those things start to gel and start to work, so there are bands I've seen that don't just hand out handbills. What they do is they hand out handbills, but on the handbill, it gives them an email address to contact. And this is actually something I've seen that's kind of new. They get an email address to contact, they contact the person that email address, and the person says, oh, you're one of like 20 people that we handed out those handbills to, and you emailed me, and guess what? I'm gonna put you on the list for our next show to make sure that that person will show up. That person doesn't pay cover, they come into a bar for free to see the show. That means they're gonna come back over and over and over again. I know it doesn't make a lot of the bars very happy because they don't get the bands usually don't get the cover charge, because that's usually where a good portion of that money goes. But it works. They get people coming. And if one person is on the list, sometimes, I'm not saying all times, they may bring 2 people with them. Those 2 people still pay cover, they come with this person who got in for free, and they see the show. You have 2 more people seeing your music than you had with just the one. Those things happen. It doesn't happen every time, but it happens. And then this one is kind of an interesting one, this point. Know the people that people know. There are people in this very town, and actually there's people in this very room even, that people know in the music industry in this town. They may not be musicians, they may not be engineers at local studios, they may not be radio personalities. They're just the people that know all the other people. Knowing the people that know is a promotion. If they know you, they'll come to your show. They'll tell other people that they're going to your show. These people have groups of people that come with them to shows. Knowing the people that know is an important part of your promotion. And the cool thing about knowing the people that know costs nothing. I spent a long time in Lawrence when they had a healthy music scene in the early and then late 90s. And one of the biggest things that could get people to come to your show is if you were at a bar the night before seeing some other show that was awesome, and you said, oh man, come to my show tomorrow night, my band's playing tomorrow night, come to our show. And then people would be like, yeah, I met that guy last night, he was really cool, I'm gonna go to his show. It's being in the community, it's being part of the music scene, and it's knowing the people that know. It really is a big deal. And that leads to that last point. Be social. Musicians, I know a lot of musicians actually that are introverts, and so it's very hard for them. If you're an introvert, get in a band that has an extrovert. That's my one piece of advice, my one good piece of advice for today, is if you're an introvert, get in that band that has the extrovert, because you need that person that's going to go out and be social and talk to people, whether it's online or whether it's in person, even though in real life actually works a lot better than online. But be social. Be social with the people that you know are going to come. Be social with your audience. It's really important to do those things because it promotes your band. And it's word of mouth promotion, which word of mouth promotion costs zero. Costs no money. And then public relations. Public relations has changed a lot in the last even like 5 years. Because now what happens with a lot of public relations, it's not just sending out press releases, which, you can still go that route of sending out press releases, but it's not just sending out press releases like PR used to be for a number of years, but it's reviewing and reviewing others online. And this is part of that becoming an expert. Ask for people to review your stuff, your music that you put out online, any of the music that you put out there. If you have a CD or even if you have it on a cassette tape, have somebody review it that's going to be as an online blogger or doing something that's going to talk about it. Have other people review it. Even if you just have your friends listen to it. I have friends over every once in a while that have dinner at my house, a group of 6 or 7 friends. Trust me, they've all heard my band's CD and they've all told me what they think of it. And they just reviewed it there, just amongst themselves. But they're going to talk about that conversation later. They will. And so that's something you have to do. So ask people for reviews. Also, when you have a website, or if you have a website, or if you have your music out on any of the distribution services, or if you have a video up on YouTube, or however you distribute your music, people will ask questions. I always say, when it comes to PR about any product anywhere, answer questions, but not criticism. So if somebody criticizes you and says, this is terrible, okay, that's their opinion. Leave it alone. Because all you're going to do is get in a fight with them online and you're going to look like a jerk, period. It'll ruin all your promotion. It'll ruin all your PR efforts. You're just going to look stupid. But if somebody asks you a legitimate question like, hey, I heard that organ sound on that song. How did you make that sound? What were you using? Yes, answer that question. Answer it as quickly as possible. Or the better question, where are you guys playing next? Always answer that question. Jump on that question. Or any other questions about your music. Answer them, but don't answer criticism. It is just going to get you in trouble. It gets you into what's called a flame war online, and nobody likes it. Everybody sees it later, and you just look foolish. The other piece on there is review others. And when I say that, I also usually put with that, but don't criticize. Give an honest review. If there's something you like, something you don't like, tell the band, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for feedback too. And if they just play their CD for you and ask you to honestly give them an honest opinion, give them an honest opinion. I haven't met a musician yet who didn't appreciate an honest opinion. I've met some that have egos and will argue with you about your opinion. However, at the end of the day, you gave them an honest opinion. Usually they don't end up hating you for it, and if they do, then so be it. And again, then that last piece, be yourself. Be yourself online. It's important with your public relations, especially, to be yourself, because people like people. They don't necessarily always, there's a lot of bands out there that I know, they will even tell you it's because we're really nice guys that we get a lot of people at our show. Their music may be awesome, but they're the ones who sit there and they'll tell you, we're good guys. People like coming to see us because we're fun. We have a good time. We have a good time with our fans. We have a good time with everybody. Be yourself. Have that fun, man. That's the best part about playing music. So here's a few more things to think about, and I am going to go through these pretty quick. This is actually kind of some more marketing kind of pieces and parts. They really kind of fit with that breakdown, but it's some things that you want to have in the back of your head when you start thinking about marketing. This right here is a diagram that I show to every company that I work with and every person that I work with when it comes to their marketing. This is how people are influenced. If you look at the person in the center, and they're a customer here, but you can call them whatever you want, a fan, a music lover, whatever you want to call them, your customer. This is how they're influenced in the world, and there's studies to back this. I didn't put them as sources down there, but I could pull them out for you if you'd like. But people are first and foremost influenced by their family and friends. Then they're influenced by experts. So again, going back to those points, be an expert. They're influenced by experts. And then I like to call that last group reliable strangers. I've gone online and looked for so many various things in my life, so many various products, and I can't find anybody that I think is really giving me like an honest review. It sounds like somebody's getting paid, but then you have that one guy that's like, yeah, I bought this and I used it for this and it was great and it worked out real well, and I'm like, reliable stranger. So there are these people, but they're outliers to your sphere of influence. And the last thing on the sphere of influence is brands. They're outliers. So as a business, that's where you sit. You sit here as a brand. And you have to get through all these levels. So what I guess I'm telling you with your marketing is try to get into this level, be an expert. Or even better, be a friend. Find ways to do that. And with music, it's much easier than with any other product. Think about me trying to be people's friends when I'm marketing pharmaceuticals. Nobody likes you to start with because they're sick, and you're trying to tell them to take something. It doesn't work. You don't get to be their friend. You get to be this out here. You might get to be a reliable stranger, but probably not. But with music, you can easily get into this spot right here and be a friend. So we have a great product, is what I'm telling you. And it's a product that can sell itself. But you got to do a little work to get into here. But you have all these other tools out here, just like any other brand has, to play with. You have, some of them obviously cost money, some of them don't. But print pieces, broadcast, radio and TV, the web, which is an awesome tool that we all have access to pretty much now, that we can use to promote and use to do PR and use to do all those things. And then mobile is kind of a separate thing in and of itself. It's a separate kind of platform to use. But that's what brands have at their capacity to then move their way in that sphere of influence. This is another thing that I talk to a lot of companies about on a regular basis, and I think it's really relevant to musicians especially. There's two different sides to customer behavior, basically. There's one that we control, which I call the technical side, and there's one that we can't control at all. It's the emotional side. We can do whatever we want, and I use these as items up here, but there's all various types of platforms. But we promote via print, we promote via broadcast, we promote via our websites, we promote and do marketing via phones and via tablets and everything else out there and all those different channels that I just showed you. And it's really to collect data, collect information about the people that we're dealing with. So we want to know more and more as we can about our fans. And why we want to know more and more about our fans is because we want to put together the right content, product, put it in the right place for people to see in the marketing world. But what we're really getting at is we want to be relevant. And when you're doing marketing for your music, you want to make your music relevant for as many people as possible, because the more times and the more consistently that you're relevant to somebody, the more they trust you. And the more that when they trust you, you're in that friend category. And now it's not even marketing at all. They're your friends. You know, you see these bands, and it's funny, I went and saw Van Halen recently with David Lee Roth, and it got terrible reviews because he is a ham. Everybody should have expected that because it's David Lee Roth. However, that show, Van Halen was there partying with however many thousands of people that were their friends. That was the show that I saw. I don't know what everybody else saw there. They didn't really even have to promote that show, I'm guessing, because their friends came out to see him play. They're friends in Kansas City. They're just lucky. They have friends in Kansas City. They have friends in Cincinnati. They have friends in Cleveland. They have that many friends everywhere they go. Most local musicians and most musicians that are not at that level yet, they don't. But guess what? You want your 40 friends or 50 friends to show up at a bar, or you want your 100 friends to show up at some outdoor event that you're playing, or if you can get 1,000 people to a show, you are on your way. And that's the thing, is you're trying to get your friends there, and you're making these relationships. That's all marketing is building those relationships and finding ways to do it, and finding ways for people to trust you. Because in turn, what they'll do is they'll review your music, tell you more about what you're doing right and wrong. You put out different things, you build more relevance with them, and you build more trust. It's an ongoing process. And as you build more trust with one person and they trust you, they're going to talk to other people. Those people are going to go through the same process, and they're going to trust you too. But those are the things you can't control. How relevant you are and how much people trust you.
Can you say anything about, maybe just your opinion, but what do you think about the volume of marketing that you put out related to how you want to build friends?
Right.
I'm not putting this very well what I mean, but the amount of stuff that you push at people, some of them are going to turn into your friends, and some of them are going to be pushed away by it.
Yep. It is. There is a balancing act, and that's part of knowing your audience. the better you get to know, how I kind of talk about this with like for-profit brands or big brands, because they ask that exact same question, which you're going to get that, we get that question about marketing all the time. What's the balance? How much can we put out to people, and then more people like us versus more people hate us? It's kind of extreme, but there's no perfect number. I can't sit here and give you an equation. What I can give you is that's part of knowing your audience. It's part of talking to people. It's part of being social. It's part of listening to your audience and listening to what is working and not working and going with that. And it's somewhat of a gut too. You have to gut know where the balance is, and what's your personal line is the best place to start. Personally, how much would you want a band pushing at you before you're like, too much, or not enough? And if you're in that first part of a relationship with a band, this is a two-way street, right? So if you're in that first part of a relationship, if I'm starting to like a band, or I've heard a band, or I have a friend in a band who's pushing stuff towards me and saying, hey, come see our band, come do this, we're doing this, we're putting out an album, this and that, I'll tell them when it's enough. They have to ask me though when it's not enough. I have to come to them and tell them it's not enough. But the best part about that is they have to ask. And that's the thing, is once you know your audience, or even if you just have a few, like say you have 10, diehard fans that are gonna be only people at your show, you're gonna go and play in a bar, and you know there's gonna be these 10 people there. They've been at every show. You've seen them every time you play.
So in your band, you're a bar band, is that right?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. So I think that complicates the picture a little bit. I think your customer is not your fans. I think your customer is the bar.
In some cases, you're absolutely right.
Because that's who you're selling.
Right.
And the fans become a characteristic of your product that you're trying to sell to the bar. Look, you bring us into your bar and we'll have 40 or 50 people.
Right.
Consistently.
Yep.
And that makes, I think musicians screw that up. They don't get it.
Right.
Now, other bands are wedding bands.
Yep.
Right? And they don't, the equation is different.
It is
a wedding.
It absolutely is different.
You're not trying to get people to the wedding. That's not your job. It's like, oh, come to this wedding and play.
Right.
On Friday, and you go about it a whole different way. Others are CD bands or.
Yep. And I think a lot of if you're talking about, you're absolutely right. Number one, there are many different types of bands out there that are trying to do different things. Their business objectives are different. And so what I would say for a wedding band is your fans are the people you've done weddings for, because you're an event band, really. You're not just a wedding band. I've met a lot of bands, and if they do just weddings, awesome. That's great that that's all they do. But they're more event bands. They actually, some of them do corporate events and do, yeah, they just do events. Yeah, and I've known people that have done that. Actually, I was in a band for a while. That was part of our business model, was doing events as well as doing bar shows. And really our audience and our customers were the people who would refer us. We'd be asking for referrals. We'd ask them to review us, just like you would with anything else. We'd ask them to review us. We'd ask them actually to do written testimonials, written letters that say, this band did an awesome job at our wedding, and we would use that to get another show. And for bar bands, it's somewhat the same way. We brought in 100 people at this bar, we can do the same for you. And one of the band that I was in that had that as part of its model, we were an 80s cover band. And as we always called it, that was business where we were shooting fish in a barrel. Because if you can pack a bar with people who love 80s music, they're gonna drink a lot more, they get nostalgic, they drink more. It's just, I don't know why that is, but that's how it happens. Weddings are somewhat the same kind of business model. When we went and started going to doing weddings, we would bring to them tapes from our bar shows. And we'd be like, look, these people love this music. And they'd be like, yeah, but that's in a bar. This is a wedding. We don't want it to get where you guys are getting over here with the bar. And so we had to start pushing, well, that we can do nice events too. We aren't just bar 80s cover band, and it worked at one point, but it took time to build that up. But yeah, you're right. There are some of these principles are the same, some of them are very different when you're talking about working in those areas.
So if you have 4 guys in a group, and you're doing bar, rock and roll, blues, whatever, and then you want to get into the wedding scene, would you ever create a new name, a new image for that wedding business?
I've seen bands do that and be successful doing it. Now, I can't speak to doing it myself or having told somebody to do that, because I don't usually recommend that, because you have a brand. You're building a brand is what you're building. And you want to build it for all the various businesses. It's kind of like trying to think of a situation that's similar in business, that in normal for-profit business it's not. Sure.
They created a whole different line of stores for people that weren't.
And they do. And it work. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying when I usually advise clients to create a brand, I try to keep them with that one brand. If it really makes sense, or they think, or they are, it's not if they think. If they decide they want to break off that brand and say, okay, well, we're this band when we're over, like for this band scenario, we're this band when we play at bars and we're this band when we play at weddings. If that really is something that everybody in the band believes will work and they're going to get behind it and promote it that way, do it, because everybody's on board. My particular way of doing it is I usually say, okay, if somebody's going to come see us at a blues joint and they're going to love us there, that's going to be the guy that's going to be the biggest promoter when somebody in a wedding goes, well, I don't normally go to blues joints, but this band came and or gave us a tape or gave us a CD or whatever, and they want to play our wedding. What do you think? Because you give off the same stage persona in a lot of ways in a bar as you would at a wedding. It may be more refined at a wedding, and it may be a little bit more subdued, but a person who comes to a show at a bar, at least I do this. When I go to a bar and I see a show, I could look at a band and watch them play and go, and if somebody were to come to me later and say, hey, they want to play my wedding, I'd be like, oh yeah, perfect. They'd be the best band you guys have ever had at any kind of event like that. And there's some bands that don't. There's some bands I'm like, you don't want them at a wedding.
How do you get the buzz to get reviewed in the pitch or ink? Because to me, I think that's
that there's two pieces to that puzzle. So there's knowing the people that know. So you got to meet the people that do the reviews in a lot of instances, and whether that's meeting them online or meeting them in person, usually helps to meet them in person. But if you meet them online and they get to know you and they get to know your band, you have a lot better chance of getting reviewed. It's just how it is. There's also a lot of magazines out there that a lot of paper magazines as well as online magazines where they allow you to review. And one thing that our band does, and I'll be real open about it, one thing our band does is that, like, I'm involved with MMF. I'm not really here to promote my band. I'm here to help MMF. However, I'm also getting to know the people that know. I mean, it's just how it is. And other people in my band write reviews. They write reviews for online magazines of other bands. They become the expert. They become somebody that is in the know. They want to become one of the people that know. And they want to talk to the people that know, because that's how you build up the brand or the product in a way to where somebody wants to review it. So getting reviewed in the Pitch or in Ink or in the Kansas City Star or any of those places right away, just by submitting, I would say that might happen in some cases. I don't know, because I'm not the person who writes the articles. You'd have to ask the people that write those articles. So I'm sure some submissions get looked at and listened to and reviewed, but I'm guessing there's more that are ongoing relationships with band managers in some cases, ongoing relationships with the people that know, and they ask. Like, I'm sure that, and I don't know Tim Finn, never met him in my life, but I'm sure that there's probably people who send him CDs of bands that they like and say, hey, Tim, you should review this. I'm sure he gets that. He probably gets it a lot more than he likes. And he doesn't review 90% of those, but I'll bet you there's a few he does. What's that?
It's a couple hundred a week.
Yeah, but I'll bet you there's somebody else too.
But friends of his absolutely could, I could walk up and say, hey, did you get this from so-and-so? And he'll go, I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably in the pile.
Yeah.
And I'll say, check it out if you get a chance. I don't do that very often, but I know people do. And now when he's digging through that, looking for an interesting bio, he might stop because somebody says something about it.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is again, marketing is relationships. And it's not, and I'm not standing up here saying it's who you know versus what you know. It's both. It really is both. And it's that with every relationship. Every relationship you probably have in your life, it's part who you know, it's part what you know that got you into that situation. And music is the same way. We see in a lot of cities, and I've only lived in 2 or 3 different cities where I've really taken a good look at the music scene, but it's not different. It's not different anywhere. There are relationships. There's people who hang out with one another and they play music and they talk to one another, and even if they aren't out drinking every night with one another, if they talk to one another every once in a while and see each other every once in a while and know that each other loves music and wants to be part of that, sooner or later people get reviews, people start getting bar shows, you get word of mouth going that way. And it's not perfect, but it's business. It's how all other businesses are run too. In a lot of businesses, it's who you know versus what you know. Or it's a combination of both, because they're relationships. They just are. It's how it all works. This is the part that I kind of was hoping to get to a little bit quicker, but it's free tools. So there are a bunch of free tools out there. I am not affiliated with any of these tools that I'm about to show you. I don't get paid by them. I don't get paid at all. I'm here for free today. I'm a free tool. No, anyway. But anyway, I said it here first. Drag and drop websites, community management apps. A lot of this stuff is online, but this last one, IRL, in real life, I think that's the biggest tool in anybody's tool chest to use as often and as much as you possibly can, is to meet people in real life and do the things you need to do there. But I'll go through and I'll show you some of these things. These are actually all tools that I've used. All of them actually are free. You can build drag and drop websites with these companies, Weebly, Squarespace, SiteBuilder, Wix.com. Tumblr and WordPress are a little bit more complicated, but they're free websites. I would highly recommend building a website as a band, or if you want to promote your band, or you're being a solo musician, I highly recommend building a website. It really is the core piece for almost every marketer today is a website versus print materials or catalogs or any of those types of things. Websites have taken that over for almost every marketer I know, for every product I know, and it's something that is almost a have to have when it comes to business. I put Facebook on here because actually there are some bands out there that have done a really good job of not having a website, but yet they have a really nice Facebook page and they keep in contact with their fans that way. They put up music on it. They do a number of different things with their Facebook page that really does take the place of their website. And so I think that's something that can work as well. Community management apps, again, our good friend Facebook is going to show up on a lot of these slides because it's very prominent and a lot of people can see you very quickly in one space. But there's also tools like Hootsuite and Sprout Social and Twitter and Instagram, where you basically are managing the conversations between you and your fans. Again, these are all free tools to use. Hootsuite is really ways to manage Twitter and Facebook. Very simple interface, very simple thing to use, but if you sign up for it, you can manage multiple Twitter and Facebook accounts all at the same time. So you're just managing them in one place versus having to go to Facebook and go to Twitter and sign into Twitter account 1 and then Twitter account 2 or Facebook account 1 and Facebook account 2. You can manage them all in one place. So it's kind of a nice tool. Sprout Social is the same way. I put Twitter and Instagram up here because Instagram especially, people are really visual and it's a great promotional tool and a great community to be a part of. If you like taking pictures, or most people now have phones that take pictures, if you take pictures and put them up on Instagram, it's amazing how fast, like, people you don't even know are like, hey, that's a really cool pic, or I didn't know you were in a band, or what kind of music do you play? You can really start conversations there that, and I've seen and I've started conversations there very quickly just around pictures that I've taken when bands have been out playing or doing this or that, and it's just kind of it's very visual, and people like visual things. They like to see you having fun, and they like to see you doing the things that you love. Music community sites. If you haven't been to Bandcamp or Reverb Nation, I highly recommend going to both of those sites. They're very cool. It's Bandcamp is more music discovery, so like it's people putting snippets of their music or full songs up online, or albums even, and so people can go and listen to their music and find out more about them. But it's really built for indie musicians. And Reverb Nation is a community more for the musicians at large. So you build a profile about yourself and about what you like in music, and it's part of building that expertise. And then you can connect to other people who like the same type of music, or play the same instrument, or like the same gear that you like, or anything doing with the deal with music. And also you can announce your shows and things like that on these sites as well. And again, our good friend Facebook. It's actually a music community in a lot of ways.
There's a catch from
It is.
from people in marketing. I can tell you, do not ever. You have a choice when you put your music on Facebook. You can require a like.
Yep.
To listen. Don't ever do that.
Right.
It makes us go, see ya.
Yeah, well,
Because you didn't earn that like.
yeah.
I was probably going to like it, but I'm not going to now because you're making me click like in order to listen to your music.
I will tell you this.
There are a lot of people in my position say that all the time.
Yep, and I will tell you this from my other profession, my day job. Facebook, I've actually talked to the people at Facebook. They're going to get rid of like gating in the next couple years, to where you can't even put that as a requirement, like that somebody has to like your song or like your page to listen to it. They're trying to get rid of that. It's harder because why they make people like the page to listen to music is because the app that's built to play the music only gets turned on. This is how it's explained to me. Only gets turned on once somebody likes the page. It's kind of in that other section. You know how you can hide.
It's weird because sometimes you go to a page and you can just listen to their
Yep.
music.
Yep.
Sometimes you go and you have to like it.
Because they can put up that gate, and it depends also which app they're using for their music. So like some of the music apps, the music player apps, are they only turn on when the like is made, and some of them turn on before now. And I think it's timing, because Facebook trying to get rid of that like gating, some of the app builders have gone back and made the apps so you can listen to them without liking, and some of them just haven't yet. Some of them haven't updated.
So, there's some other questions about Facebook. One, like if I post, hey, it's going to be in a particular location, I have 600 friends.
Right.
Only 100 or 200 actually get the message.
Yep.
And that really takes me on.
Yeah, but I mean, Facebook, they're a business.
Oh, I know, no, I'm not.
We've been running that free advertising training for what have we had for 8 years now?
Yeah, and we were so lucky when Facebook started, right? So when Facebook first started and you started up a page, all your friends would get your messages. But now it's gotten so, you have to boost it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's come with the number of people that are on Facebook that.
You recommend doing creating events, Facebook, you can create an event.
I do recommend creating an event, because then you can invite friends, and those friend invites, actually, they receive all of those. They may not see it in their news feed as their first thing, but they all receive the invites, and it shows up in their sidebar if you did invite them to that event. And as the event gets closer, it actually even reminds them about it, even if they have not answered yet whether they want to go or not. It does put up a reminder. So I do recommend building an event out of any shows that you're doing or anything like that. But pages have become a lot tougher, and the whole idea of boosting your posts and things like that, it's because Facebook, they have to monetize their system too. We used Facebook for free for so long, and it did so many awesome things for free for a long, long time, and now they have tried to monetize some of those things. But I will tell you this, I've told clients that have the smallest of marketing budgets, if you have even a sliver of a marketing budget, Facebook ads work really, really well. Yeah, hyper targeted.
You can put them in radius of the event, age group. I mean, they're very, very targeted.
Hyper targeted for the money that you put into a Facebook ad, you really are getting probably the most bang for your buck. That's my opinion. I don't work for Facebook. I've been lucky enough to talk to people at Facebook every once in a while throughout my career, but their ads work. They really do work well.
Bands in Town is a good website.
Bands in Town, I like Bands in Town as well, and I get their emails all the time when I've put in my preferences of bands that I like. I think Bands in Town is a great thing as well. Honestly, any kind of these music community sites that you find, how I normally do it is I'll sign up for it first and see what their information that they're sending me looks like before I sign up my band for it. But we use Bands in Town. If you guys didn't know, Doug's actually in my band, so. Yes, he's a plant. He's the guy that came so I could pick him out of the crowd.
I use Bands in Town as, one of the bands I manage or anything, like putting them on there and doing it. But
Right.
I've interacted with it as a consumer.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, and that's really, I think, the best way to test things is, and so going and kind of throwing it back to all of this, if you know your audience and you see a new tool out there that you want to possibly use, try it out as the audience would use it, like how it would come to the audience. Try it out that way first, and then decide whether, if it's too much and you don't like it, then your fans aren't going to like it either. Your friends aren't going to like it, or the people you're trying to appeal to aren't going to like it either. So there's that. Music distribution sites, these get a little bit dicey at times, I'll be honest. Sometimes you can put up songs and it'll automatically allow people to download them, which you don't want them to be downloaded. You just want people to stream it or listen to it there. So you have to be very careful about some of the settings you put on and things like that. But two that I like a lot actually are SoundCloud and surprisingly YouTube. YouTube's been really good to the music industry, despite what some people, it brought us Justin Bieber, come on. Anyway, sorry, that's a bad example. But it has been really good for musicians and people in music in general, because you can share ideas there. You can put up your songs with very little effort and actually almost no cost. You can make yourself a nice little video online. You can go to sites that give you B-roll video. Basically just put your song over some B-roll video, put it up on YouTube, and people see it. And how, yeah. Yeah, you go online, you find some B-roll footage, put your song over it, and even most people will put the lyrics in there, so it looks like it's coming from like a karaoke machine almost, and so they'll put the lyrics in there as well. You put it up on YouTube, people see it. I mean, and I can't say that we like, yeah. Well, and you don't have time, a lot of us don't have time or the money to shoot professional videos for our songs and things like that, but that's the new way of making videos now.
I'm a fan of if you can't afford to make a video, just
The album art.
concept still with the album.
The band's promo photo.
Kids with balloons, I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's a song about committing suicide. There's no kids with balloons.
The nice thing about the freeware type movie making software that most computers have now, like any Windows machine or any Mac comes with a free like iMovie or Windows has a movie making software as well. Is that like you said, Scott? You just take the band photo and let it like do the effect where it like zooms in and zooms out real slow and moves side to side, just so people don't get bored visually. But it's there. But yeah, I don't mind the B-roll videos either.
Honestly, I'm usually clicking in other windows and doing other stuff on my computer. So
Yeah.
unless it's something.
People are listening to it and doing something.
Right, unless it's something interesting that I'm specifically watching the video for. The rest of it.
But sound quality matters.
It does.
It's like a bad recording in a dark bar is good.
No, I would highly recommend if you're going to put a recording up on SoundCloud or on YouTube, and I've been in bands where we've made this mistake of putting up demos that we've played, from our practice and things like that that don't sound as good on SoundCloud. Not necessarily all the time does that backfire. Like when you're a hobbyist musician, it's not really a backfire. People are getting to hear your music to some extent. It's not great. But if you really are wanting to be a working musician, again, best put out your best product, consistently put out your best product. So put out your best recording. If it is from a bar show and you got a recording off the board that is you guys all think sounds amazing, okay, put it up.
That's fine, but if I click on an EPK and there's a link for me to listen to your music at the bottom of it, and I click on it, and it's recorded from this, I turn my headphones off and turn it off.
And that's what it is put out the best you possibly can. And the stuff that's not the best,
So,
keep it for your own archives.
on YouTube particularly, let's say you have some fans that throw up really crappy stuff, about your show and stuff.
Right.
I think you can get it off YouTube.
You can.
Do you do that?
I don't. And I'll tell you why. It's free public relations. Usually what I'll do if somebody puts up a crappy video, which thankfully not many people have, but if they put up a crappy video of the band that I'm playing in and it's not the best sound quality and it's kind of a crappy video, I usually go on and put I'll put a comment in the comment section that says, hey, thanks for coming to the show. Thanks for doing this video. That's be about it.
Put a link to a better video in the comments.
Occasionally I have put links to better stuff, or say, hey, if you want to download our CD, it sounds much better than this video, haha, things like that. You do those kind of things, but that's not answering, in that situation, that's not answering criticism. That's just saying, hey, we have a better product than this. Thanks for doing this as a fan of putting this up, but again, the idea of putting a link in the comments is probably the best route to go.
A lot of the reason Prince recently took all of his stuff off of everything, other than he's the little purple tyrant. The fact is that, he used that as one of his reasons, was that he was like, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is shooting footage of me with their phones and uploading it to these sites, and it's awful.
And
that was one of his reasons for he jerked everything.
And the interesting thing about it is somebody like Prince or somebody that we see doing those types of things, taking all their stuff down off of everywhere else. First, they have the money to get people to do that because it takes time and effort to talk to all these various places where this stuff is at. He has the money to do it, but plus he's controlling the consistency of his product and his brand. He's doing the same exact things. It's the same exact principles. He wants the consistency of his brand to be perfect across the board and be the best it can be across the board. And he's going to put it up on services where that can happen. And he has the money to do that. And he has the money to get it taken down. I think it hurts a brand a lot because I've seen really poor videos of not professional bands, but I've also seen, I know we've all seen kind of the meltdown, like the celebrity meltdown bands that get on stage, they get heckled and they don't handle it well. Those people then try to get those videos taken down. And in the PR and marketing world, they will all tell you, leave them up. There's no such thing as bad publicity. Guess how many more people showed up at their next show expecting that band member to melt down? I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's good, and I'm not saying it's healthy for your brand or healthy for your marketing. But what I'm saying is if you don't have the money and effort to quash it correctly, like really quash it, like Prince would have, kind of either let it go or just be very nice about it. Hey, thanks. If you want to download our CD, which has much better sound quality, come to this link. I think that's a great strategy, and those are the good kind of strategies that I don't always come up with off the top of my head. It's wonderful things like Sandra even bringing it up. Put a link in the comments. It's a smart way to do it. Google Apps and Analytics. This is really more if you're going to build your own website and you don't have and you want to make sure that you're watching what's going on with your website and the analytics piece of it. Google Analytics is free. You can set it up for any website that you have, and you can see like who's coming to your website, what they're doing, what they're clicking on, how long they're there, things like that through Google Analytics. Google Apps for Work, if you don't have the money to buy Microsoft 365, I guess it is now, Microsoft Office 365, but you need a good word processor or spreadsheets or a drive where you can put your music ideas, or you need a calendar for all your band events, or you need a good email account, Google Apps for Work is free. I highly recommend it. And so this was kind of a thing that was like, these are business tools. And these are some of the business tools that I use every day, in and out, day in, day out. And I don't even think about it, but they're free, which makes it even better. Whenever I think about it, I'm like, huh.
I recently had a great high anxiety of switching
Uh-huh.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was like practically in tears, like, I can't do this. It took me a year to figure out Excel. It's the same thing.
And isn't there a Google web building?
Yeah, they actually do have Google Sites now, so you can build a website through Google as well. Yeah. Free. Yep.
Everything in Drive is free, and I can import my Excel documents, and it just automatically
Yep.
formats them in the same format in Drive.
Yep.
To the last WordPress conference, and there was somebody there that used WordPress in tandem with Google Apps and the Google Site Builder
Yep.
and Google Analytics. And
Yep.
everything that she did was WordPress and all the Google products married together. She had tons of clients, and she just pushed everything through all of that, and all of it was free. So all of her tools were provided for free.
Yep.
She gets clients that way, and in a sense, makes the websites with WordPress and the Google Sites, and uses Google Analytics to give feedback to the clients. And so
Yep.
everything
All works
everything
together.
She did was push through those products, and they were all free.
It is a pretty amazing thing, and I use Google Apps exclusively pretty much now. Today, my presentation is in Keynote. It was free on my Mac, but that's the only time I haven't used Google Apps in like the last 2 or 3 years. I love their stuff.
Midwest Music Foundation, we use Google Apps.
Yep. It's worked out great for a lot of nonprofits, actually. They've been able to switch over to this instead of paying Microsoft to use Office. They use Google Apps for free.
Especially since we don't have a physical office, brick and mortar office.
Yeah.
In the office wherever it goes.
Yeah, where's your office? Google Drive? Yeah. That's our office.
Yeah. So and then the last thing is in real life. And like I said, I think this one is the most important thing. Gigging, teaching, socializing, jamming with people, and the last one on their work. When I say work, I mean if you have another job besides playing in a band, if you're not a working musician, if you do another job, annoy the crap out of your coworkers by telling them how you're in a band and they need to come see you play. And I mean, I'm not saying bother them to where you're going to get in trouble with HR, but tell them, let them know that you're in a band. Let them know that you're a working musician or that you're a musician that does it on your spare time or a hobbyist musician. Yeah, well, you know what? I've actually loved it. I've had 2 groups of people from work come to our shows. They had a great time. My work right now, that the company I work for right now, is trying to figure out when we're going to have an event where either my band plays at the event or they come to where my band's playing for the event. So we're trying to kind of coordinate that, which that's going to be 20, 30 people that show up because the CEO told them to come see our band. I'll take it. It's an audience. I'll take it. They're going to see us. Hopefully they'll love us.
Just don't play take this job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or, well, yeah, it depends on. Exactly. But it is, these kind of things do help a lot. Everybody knows that gigging helps. That's a no-brainer. But if you can teach, or you do like to teach lessons, or even if you're just, I actually right now, I didn't intend to ever become a music teacher ever in my life, but I started teaching my daughter guitar. She told one of her friends. So now I am now teaching my daughter and one of her little friends how to play guitar. Their parents are real happy about it because I didn't know what to charge in the beginning, and I'm totally undercharging these people. However, it's things like that you can do. It spreads the word that you're a musician, that you do this as either a hobby or you do it for your living, and that it's something you should do. Socializing, I've said throughout the entire thing, be social with people, be human, talk to people. After shows, I am the worst about this. I'm going to be honest. I'm terrible about this, but I preach it as part of something that you should do, is you should go out and talk to the people that you don't know that are at the show, and at least say hello, and at least thanks for listening or something. Even if they're there just to drink beer and heckle you the entire time, go up and go, that was really funny, you're a great heckler, I'm glad you enjoyed your beer. I mean, something like that, just something, because it'll catch them off guard, and they may end up becoming the person that comes back the next time that's standing in the front row going, yeah, rock on, that kind of thing. Or even if that's at a wedding, if you have an opportunity and you're playing an event like that, go up and talk to some of the people. They want to talk to you too. They think it's cool to talk to the people that were just on stage, even if you're just a local, band. People dig that. I know I always did when I was younger, and I still dig it today when musicians come up and talk to me.
So do you have any advice about
About pricing? um, that's a whole different conversation around merchandising and pricing. For bands who are, it depends on how often you're playing, what your reputation is, how much experience you have. Pricing is it's a really tricky spot for bands. With bars, it's much harder even than it is with events. Events you can come in and say, okay, our band is this many people, we each want to make this much amount for the time we're going to spend and the travel expenses and all this, and this is what we're charging, and they can do that for a wedding. You cannot do that with a bar. You have to go in and kind of, it's almost a hoping game at a bar to say, okay, yeah. A lot of times that's what you're playing for is free beer. I actually saw a meme this morning before I left the house, so it's an image, and it shows all the gear packed in the back of the car, and it goes, musician packs $5,000 worth of gear into a $500 car to go 100 miles for a $50 gig. It's funny because it's true, but that's how it happens sometimes, and it really is your reputation. And at some point, the people I would ask more about pricing is if next time we do this kind of conference, if we could get a band manager, somebody who manages bands on a regular basis, they'd really probably be able to give you a better feel because they deal with it more on a day-to-day basis of trying to get band shows where they're getting paid and things like that.
When you're just playing bar games, you're basically just at the beginning you're hoping for opening spots.
Right.
And then as you get a following, then you're going to give the bars are going to say, you're playing on a Thursday night. Well, you know what? All of a sudden, Van Halen's playing at Sprint Center on
Right.
the same night. But since you've been a consistent person, that bar owner's going to say, we'll give you a $200 guarantee.
Yep.
But you still get, way more than that percentage of the door because you draw so well.
Yeah.
If the gig pans out like it's supposed to.
Yep.
But if if there's a hurricane,
Yep.
when it comes, we're going to give you this guarantee. But it's a long road to that point.
Yep, it is.
It's a long road to that point.
It is.
Where a bar owner is willing to do that because they know that $200 isn't going to matter.
Right.
You're going to draw on it.
Well, and that's the thing. When I was in the 80s, it's the difference between like when I was in the 80s cover band and playing with that group, we had a guarantee when we walked into a bar. It's because
you had a guarantee.
Yeah, well, and they knew what they were getting into. We were going to play songs that were popular on the radio throughout the 80s. They knew they were going to bring in a ton of people that were going to be drinking a lot. So what they paid us was just a drop in the barrel as to what they were going to make that night. So it's one of those things that they have to. I couldn't sit here and give you great pricing on various. I could try on various situations, but I think you'd have a better luck talking to somebody who manages bands on a regular basis. Yeah, no, cover band's a whole different monster.
Because you're playing in places that have a built-in audience.
Right.
You're hired to entertain the audience.
Yep, but even on
You're playing originals and you're playing in bars that are depending on you
right,
to provide a product to bring people
Right.
into the bars.
right, and that's
That's a whole different one.
yep, it is. And I'll tell you, when I was in original bands, the original bands I played in throughout my life and throughout playing music, we didn't make anywhere near what the cover band made. But we already had a packaged product on the cover band. You don't have something that's proven.
I love to hear Don't Stop Believing, man. They just did.
Very true, very true.
That's the truth.
Do you know that song?
Do I know that song? I'm not going to admit to knowing that song right now. The next part was really for us to have a discussion, but we've kind of done it all the way throughout. So I put up this awesome picture of Mike McCann. He is a high school counselor, and that's what he would say to you when you come into his office. He'd be like, let's wrap. And that means you're going to get asked a lot of questions and have to give him answers and hope to get out of his office. But there you have it. So thank you guys. I've ran way over time, but thank you.